There we have it. Losing Verno and Bonkar might seem like a big loss for NRG, but the squad has finally spoken. And now we have a clue, if not a clear answer, on why things went down the way they did. And no, Verno didn't punch FNS. His face looks fine in the podcast. And honestly, I think Verno's more of a kicker anyway. But did Verno kick FNS? More on that later. Anyway, the reason for his departure is much simpler than that. Welcome to Sinistry. The ratio right now is a disaster. I'd really appreciate it if you could help me on this one with a sub. With that out of the way, let's get into the video.
Obviously, he's an insane player in terms of his mechanical skill. Probably one of the best, if not the best player I've played with mechanically.
No one's questioning Verno's mechanics. His aim is clean, his gunplay is sharp, but raw talent alone isn't enough at this level. And that's exactly what FNS pointed out next.
But there are just so many more things that you have to be great at in this game when it comes to specifically helping your team be the best they can be. And that just wasn't there.
Essentially, FNS was saying that while Verno had the mechanics, he was missing the crucial skills needed to truly be great in his role. And the biggest issue, Verno is an initiator main. He's played Sova 317 times, making up over 50% of his entire pro career. And as a Sova player, your primary job is to gather intel and set up your team for success. But in the fast-paced world of pro play, a good support player isn't just about utility usage. You need to be a strong communicator as well. Your job is to make your teammates' lives easier, creating opportunities for them to shine. Unfortunately, that was the biggest thing Verno lacked. Here's a little quiz for you. If you were part of the NRG team, what would you have done in this situation?
Door.
He's stuck.
Have him in.
I closed the door. You can be switched. Like tree. Can be tree.
Kill him, Sam.
Would you have let some take the ace, or would you have told FNS to just kill Foxy9? Most of you would have probably said to let some have the ace. I mean, he called it, NRG was up big, the enemy was on an eco, there's no real downside. Plus it's a free morale boost for some and the whole squad. But for some of you cold-blooded tacticians out there, I know you'd be telling FNS to just end it and kill the last guy. Because well, that's just the right call.
No, just kill him. Just kill him, bro.
Nah, just kill him.
Just kill him, bro. Kill him. He's trying.
God, that's what I'm talking about. Give me the ace.
Giving him the ace. Bro.
I get where Verno is coming from. Some teams operate the same way. They don't care about securing an ace for a teammate, so maybe Verno was just following that same mentality. But let's not forget, they were in the off-season. The best thing you'll get is a Mickey Mouse trophy. If he had an issue with some wanting the ace, there was definitely a better time and place to bring it up. Maybe escalate it to Bonkar, you know? But instead, he chose to kill the Vive. Oh, I killed the Vive, right? This situation just highlights Verno's lack of maturity. He struggles with communication, and when he does communicate, it can be disruptive, like the clip I showed you earlier, or this one here.
I'll suck. They can't win.
Let's get closer.
Kill this guy, bro.
Oh, sorry.
Kill me.
Good round, but
Don't say that, but
Now I know 2 clips aren't enough to make a full case, but the team made their decision. So chances are, this was just the tip of the iceberg. There's probably even more of that we haven't seen. Sometimes, being a good teammate or just a decent human being is all it takes. You need to read the room and act accordingly. You can't just force your way in pushing your own philosophy, beliefs, or decisions without considering the bigger picture. Instead of uplifting some and possibly boosting the team's morale by letting him secure the ace, you chose to steer unnecessary tension. Was that really the better move? Was it worth it? If you have watched the comms videos that NRG has uploaded, you'll easily notice that he's the least communicative of the group. It's like he doesn't want to be there. And maybe that's it, you know. Maybe his plan all along was to get kicked. Maybe he just wasn't feeling the vibe with these guys, so he decided to tough it out and be hard to deal with until they finally got sick of him. I guess we'll never know. FNS tried to tweak the roles to make things work, moving Verno to Sentinel to lessen his comm struggles, but that didn't pan out either. At that point, they were just plugging holes on a sinking ship. FNS also pointed out that, for the most part, the team's objectives weren't aligning, and it seemed like Verno was overdoing things, trying to do more than necessary, only to end up hurting the team. When that happens, everyone else has to pick up the slack, and that kind of imbalance can break a squad. The team came to a collective agreement that a change was necessary, not just for their own success but for Verno's growth as well. They weren't making the decision out of spite. It was about fairness. Both sides were unhappy. No matter how skilled an individual player is, if the chemistry and cohesion are not there, the team as a whole suffers. And in a scene where the margins between winning and losing are razor thin, they couldn't afford to keep forcing something that wasn't working.
So, somebody had to go.
At the end of the day, it was about giving both NRG and Verno the best chance to succeed, even if that meant going their separate ways. With all these gaps in Verno's game, you might be wondering, how was he so good at Tier 2 then? The answer lies in the difference between the two levels. Tier 2, while competitive, is less punishing. The pace is slower, the margin for error is bigger, and the teams rely more on individual skill rather than strict structure and discipline. Verno's natural mechanics and aggressive playstyle thrived in that setting. But Tier 1 is a different beast entirely. The competition is relentless, the expectations are higher, and players are expected to be adaptable, disciplined, and communicative. In Tier 2, Verno could get away with small mistakes and still dominate. In Tier 1, every weakness is exposed, and his struggles with team play and communication became a major liability not only to him but to the team as well. If you watched the recent podcast, you'd notice something strange. They didn't mention Bonkar at all, not even once. That silence speaks volumes. It makes me think that Bonkar's departure had nothing to do with his own performance, but everything to do with his loyalty to Verno. Maybe he stood up for his boy, maybe he didn't agree with how things were being handled, or maybe he straight up refused to continue with the team if Verno was getting benched. Whatever the case may be, it looks like his fate was sealed the moment Verno was out. Although they didn't outright say Verno was lazy, they made it clear that he's lacking in the specific skills you need to have to be great at the game. Interpret that however you want, but one thing is certain. If Verno still wants to make it in Tier 1, he's got a lot of work to do. NRG framed it in the nicest way possible, but let's be real. When a team has to bend over backward just to make things work around you, that doesn't make you a star player. That makes you a luxury player. Someone a team can only afford to have if everything else is working perfectly. And here's the problem, Valorant isn't that kind of game. There are too many variables. Aside from FNS's dementia moments, you've got opponents constantly forcing you to make errors, mid-game and late-game adaptations, unpredictable agent compositions, meta shifts that force role changes, and even the mental game of high-pressure tournaments. Perfection is impossible to maintain. And if one player needs everything to be perfect just to function, you're basically playing 4 versus 5. And that's an impossible way to play the game and win. And look, I'll own up to it. At the time, that video was the only thing out there that I and a lot of others could speculate on. There was no real insight into what was actually happening behind the scenes, so it was easy to assume the worst. The issue wasn't about effort, it was about Verno lacking the intangibles needed to be a great support player. At the end of the day, not everything was said. And this might be where the story ends, unless Verno decides to snap back. And if he does, this whole drama is about to reach a whole new level. Because at this point, it's not about whether Verno kicked FNS in the face, or in the balls, or wherever. It's not just about some behind the scenes beef or a bad performance. It's about whether NRG was right to cut him or if FNS and the squad are just covering their own flaws. If Verno speaks up, he's not just clapping back. He is putting the ball back in NRG's court, forcing them to defend their entire decision making. And if that happens, things are gonna go nuclear. That's it for the video. If you enjoyed it, consider subbing to help balance the ratio. Appreciate the support and I'll catch you on the next one.